tit for tat, deba pu deba. Who will be the people's choice? Who will be crowned Q95's best radio music show host and personality? Who will be crowned Dominica's best DJ in 2016? Your guess is as good as ours. You can make a difference in deciding the winners. Have your say every day. Call, text, tweet, vote online on the Q95 website at www.q95da.com. Be at the Harlem Plaza from 7:30 p.m. on Saturday, 30th July. Get there early and win valuable items, gifts, prizes, and shopping vouchers from very generous sponsors. Be a big winner. Only on the big station. Only on Q95. www.q95da.com. It's our brand new dynamic Q Family website. Log in, interact, have fun on the pages of your favorite shows. Rise and Shine, The Hot Seat, Easy Rock 951, Nature Isle Cruise, Youth on Q, Knockout 95, Politics, Weekly Headlines, Island Rhythms, Soul to Soul Gospel, Creole Asser Q, The Big Link Up, Q Exposure, Power Drive 951. Governance on Q. Monday nights from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Let's get to the point. Too many reports, proposals, policy recommendations, and implementation strategies for achieving social and economic growth gathering dust on shelves. Institutions eroded, compromised, and broken. Recommendations being ignored while poverty persists among the people. Governance on Q. Break through the barriers of uncertainty and despair and get back to the basics of good governance with bold new ideas for initiatives and growth for all of the people. Rebuild our institutions and get them back on track. Governance on Q. Discuss and understand the urgency to get real growth and empower the people to convert sound policies into tangible action, to fully engage local expertise and entrepreneurs at home and abroad, to let all ideas and voices contend, to stop putting square pegs in round holes and recycling unfulfilled government utterances. Let's see the big picture for all sectors in one integrated economy and speak to growth from the bottom up. Governance on Q, promoting good governance for growth. Fresh ideas and new mindsets for tangible results-oriented progress and growth for all. Governance on Q. Everyone welcome to join the conversation. Call us at 767-449-3095, 96 or 97, or 767-616-4257. From overseas, call 305-432-9624. Governance on Q, Monday nights, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Only on the big station. Only on Q95.
Hey, 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 come children, come children, come children, come children, come. I have a story to tell you. Come children, come children, come children, come children, come. I have a story to tell you. Come. There is a child of the 70s and I'm crying now. When I look around at my youths today, I feel a how. You see, the struggle was never about one battle and stop. But from where we left off, our youths today are not picking up. The transgression and regression I see today and feel. Well, it has to be an illusion, no, it cannot be real. Foolishness have crowded their conscious mind. All progress we made, they have left behind. All positive gains going down the drain. Look like 1970 happened in vain. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the 70s. We are the children of the revolution. We are the fighters, if you please. It's we who fought for your salvation, so you don't have to fight. We are the children of the revolution who fought to make things right. You make me feel we fought a losing battle when I look at you today. Oh God, we are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution who fought so that you won't be this way. Beverly Jones, God rest her soul, Guy Haywood and Brian Jeffords too. These are just some of the people who fought and died. Yes, they give their lives for you. Many more have died, too much to mention. Many more are still around. And then there are those of us who continue to make up contribution in song. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the 70s. We are the children of the revolution. We are the fighters, if you please. It's we who fought for your salvation, so you don't have to fight. We are the children of the revolution who fought to make things right. You make me feel we fought a losing battle when I look at you today, my son. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution. We are the children of the revolution who fought so that you won't be this way.
Good evening. Apologies for that slight technical mishap. A little feedback here. This is Atimate, and this is Governance on Q. We are continuing our focus on this very troubling, disturbing issue of child sexual abuse. I'm sorry if you're going to feel that it's too much, but I'm sorry, it's going to be continued. Because we have a tendency to let things go, let things slide, even when they are critical, when they're important. This one is not going to slide. Trust me. This one is not going to slide. Not just because of who's involved this time, but because the persistence of child sexual abuse will lead to the complete destruction of society. Because child sexual abuse creates dysfunctional people. People who cannot operate, cannot think, cannot act, cannot plan, cannot manage, and certainly cannot govern. And it's becoming clear to me as I research this issue even more online, in conversations and interviews with people who have been dealing with this issue for quite a long time, that maybe at the heart of our inability to govern ourselves as a society is the fact in some way all of us have been abused at some point in our lives. Abused by poverty, abused by unemployment, abused by disrespect. But there are, I'm discovering, hundreds, if not thousands, even in this tiny little village called Dominica, of males and females who have been abused. So here's some simple arithmetic to bear in mind. If you have had 100 people abused, that probably means you have at least 100 abusers, or enough people in the society who have ended up collaborating on the abuse of those 100 people. So on both sides of the fence, on the side of the victims, that is those who have been abused, and on the perpetrators, those who have carried out the abuse, they too end up being dysfunctional. Meaning that they haven't, cannot, and will not be able to function. So is it any wonder that we're still having difficulty finding people to manage schools, manage sports clubs, manage cultural clubs, manage musical groups, to manage almost anything in our society? Private sector associations, professional organizations. Is it possible that at the heart of our inability to govern well is the fact that we are harboring in us some of the darkest and most terrible secrets of experiences of things that may have happened, or things that we may have done to other people? It's becoming very, very clear to me. I'm no expert, but sometimes you need just local knowledge and a clear mind and common sense and a compassionate heart to be able to realize what's going on. And so today we're going to continue this journey of exploring and digging deeper into this phenomenon, this terrible phenomenon of child sexual abuse in our society, and start examining why we respond the way we do. Or put another way, why don't we respond? Why do we make excuses? Why is it possible to celebrate people who are accused of abusing children, while we go about the business of trying to raise our own children? How is that possible? How is that possible? So I'm going to be together with my co-host here, Marilyn Isles, Auntie Marilyn, who has graced us with her presence this evening. Good evening, Marilyn. How are you?
Good evening to you, Abby. Good evening to you, and of course, good evening to our listeners across the island and further afield, abroad, internationally, regionally. Good afternoon, good evening to everybody, and of course, welcome to another very, very important edition of Governance.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
You know, Marilyn, since we've started this series, I'm being approached, flagged, stopped on, called, texted, Facebooked by women. Mostly Dominican women, most of whom have actually been abused as children. And the most recent and most touching interchange I've had with an abused person and somebody who's almost given her life to tackling this is how I stopped, and I got out of the car and I was approached by this woman. She was carrying a baby, by the way, an infant, a boy infant. And she says, "You don't know me, but I know you." And years ago, both my children were abused by their stepfather in my house. And we took it up, went to court, and sent him to jail for 20 years. Today my children are in their 20s, married. They haven't gotten over that. And she, as the mother of those children, has not gotten over that. And she recounted that as a child herself, several adult men made attempts to rape her. But she is a fighter. And she fought and escaped the totality of that abuse. And she's holding the third generation of a family in her hand, telling me that story. And you know, it hit me, Marilyn. It just hit me. That in the same way that poverty can become an intergenerational affliction, that your grandparents were poor, your parents are poor, you're going to be poor, your children are going to be poor, unless something dramatic is done. So too with abuse, physical, mental, emotional, and sexual abuse. And it just struck me that the crime of child sexual abuse is not just a crime against a person, it's a crime against a generation. And in fact, it's an intergenerational crime, like slavery. And it hit me while I'm standing on the side of the road listening to it. So I want to dedicate this program to all the Cynthias of this world, all the mothers and grandmothers who have fought and continue to fight against child abuse. I'd like to do that.
And I think that's important. It's important, Avi, to do that, because you know there are a large number of women who have suffered, and continue to suffer in silence, and a lot of abused persons who we, as you are saying, are coming out and are reliving as if it was yesterday, and we're talking something that happened maybe 20, 30, 40 years earlier. And you know, a lady like that, I don't know her obviously, but she is to be commended for the actions that she took, because it's the very same actions that she took that we're witnessing. Many people are being bought off and paid off and bribed and threatened and harassed and victimized from taking. And as a result, you know, you said that this is a crime against not just an individual person, but it's also a crime against a generation or generations. It's actually also a crime against our own society.
True.
Because this is tarnishing and destroying valuable members of our society who are not able to, in many cases, operate at their fullest potential, and are not able to realize the dreams and the passions and the desires and drives that they would have had they not been through that type of circumstance. And so we've got to recognize the impact, the significant impact it has. Because if you think about one of the ways that you identify a young person who's been subjected to some kind of abuse, whether it's sexual abuse or of another nature, they tend to withdraw. They tend to pull away from society. They're not involved in their groups anymore. They're not involved in activities. They stay away from their peers and their friends. And they pretty much isolate themselves. And so therefore they don't put themselves forward for what they maybe had a dream to fulfill.
Yeah.
And we have to recognize that these are not only are they our mothers of the future, but they're also our grandmothers
And fathers.
They are also, the teachers. They are the doctors. They are the contractors. They are the bankers. You name it. These are the people who are going to be actively participating and moving our society forward. And if we don't recognize that, I don't know why people have a block for some reason.
Mm-hmm.
And we keep pushing this message of child sexual abuse. And I don't understand why people are not outraged. I mean, there are elements that are outraged, but there are significant elements that are not. And are almost, the responses and the attitude is like, so, it's happened, move on.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm fearful, I'm afraid of that response because of the long-term impact it has on the society moving forward.
Mm-hmm.
We've already suffered as a nation. We've suffered with brain drain. We've had a significant number of our intellectual capacity move itself
Mm-hmm.
from Dominica. We still see now that young people actively have their eye on the door.
Yeah.
How can I get out of here? How can I get out of this country? How can I leave Dominica? And if we're driving those people out, but then when the ones that are left behind and stay behind are bruised and battered and abused, and what type of society are we constructing for ourselves in the next 15 to 20 years?
Well, Marilyn, that's the question that normally development economists ask or are asked. What kind of society? What is your vision of a society? We have these wonderfully flowery phrases. What is your vision? And then what's the mission? What are the goals and the objectives? And then what are the strategies? And then what is the plan? The action plan and so on. I'm sure I have attended too many of those kinds of meetings in my life. But it seems that those meetings are missing the mark, because they're forgetting, most of them, that it is about the people.
Mm-hmm.
It is about essentially children who become adults that we're talking.
Right.
And that we really should be asking, what's our vision for childcare in our society? And then what's the link between childcare, child development, education, expertise, productivity, economic output, and growth? And there is. Because those very young men and women who are the clerks in the banks, who are at the insurance companies, who are teachers in the schools, primary and other levels, are our children. They're somebody's children. Question is, are they operating at 10%, 20%, 50% of their productive output? And if so, why? And is there a link between they having had a childhood of abuse and they feeling so lacking in confidence in themselves, or so angry at everyone around them, that in a real sense they deliberately underperform, which is a fact? Why are we not doing well? Where are our Olympians? Where are our, Nobel Prize winners? Where are our Pulitzer Prize winners? Size of country has nothing to do with it.
No.
Care of people is what has everything to do with it. And I think you ask the question as to, what about the way we treat ourselves and our children that affects and defines our society. And who can we expect to stand up for caring and nurturing and protecting children? Who would we normally expect to stand up? And who is not standing up, and why? You would normally expect parents, mothers and fathers, grandparents to stand up. But the literature is telling us that most child sexual abuse is taking place in and at the home.
Yeah.
So we've actually missed something here. Question is, what is it we have missed? And you talk about outrage. Outrage is a word that is related to one's sense of values. If you understand what you care about and why you care about it, that honesty is important to you, that cleanliness is important to you, that family is important to you, and so on. If you understand those basic homegrown concepts, then anything that sullies or attempts to destroy or unravel or to celebrate the opposite of those things will cause outrage. So is it that, Marilyn, the fact that there is not widespread outrage about what is now a highly public affair, is it that we have given up on those fundamental values and have become something else, or what?
It may well be that, Afi, but I think with that, we have to go a lot further back in our own history and our own tradition, because one of the things I've heard people say, I think this whole sort of episode of or awareness building of child sexual abuse has been certainly mediaized in probably the last 3 years. We've seen a much larger media focus, media attention on that. It doesn't mean that it hasn't been there. Of course it has been there. But what I'm hearing more and more from people, directly and indirectly, is that, that's always been there. Those kind of things always been happening. But look so long, them things happen. So we've developed an attitude that is saying, this is something that we have grown with. This has become part of who we are. This has become part of an innate part of our culture. And whilst we know it happens, well, it happens. Some people react to it and others don't, because the majority of people, there are a vast majority of people who do know that is actively going on in that house over there, or that house over there, or in that community. That father the child with his daughter, or that uncle did that to his niece, or that auntie did that to her nephew. And this is something that, unfortunately, as a society, we seem to have grown up with, and we've kind of allowed it to become an integral part of who we are. And so that's why I think maybe there is a lack of outrage, because it's something that we're accustomed to, we're comfortable with. It's almost as if when you look at the response or the lack thereof, people are almost saying, we're trying to bring in a kind of a Western, a Western response to a Caribbean cultural matter. Because it's part of the Caribbean culture, and you see this happening in other islands, and it's the reports have demonstrated that this is the same. There are similar points of view, similar perspectives around the Caribbean region, and so it tells us that as a Caribbean people, wherever this came from, where it started and why it started, I don't know. recognizing, to my mind, that if an adult sees fit to engage in any type of physical activity with a child, is a mental issue. There's a sickness there with that person. But then there are also elements of persons who just have a wickedness in them, that decide that they want to inflict pain or suffering on another person, and especially a more helpless person than themselves, the child. And so as we're moving forward, we are trying to understand, we need to do more to understand, where has this actually come from? And how have we dealt with it previously? And why are we so afraid to deal with it in the correct manner moving forward? But I think part of the problem is that we haven't really looked in detail about, there's lots of research having done on many different things, the impacts 20 years down the line. And they may do case studies where they follow people that have gone through particular circumstances in life, and then they see you down 10 years, 20 years, 30 years down the line, and so they can then make give a result that says people who go through X, whether you're looking at children's development or whatever the case may be, if you go through X or you go through Y or you go through Z, the likelihood is that in 20 years, 10 years, whatever, you're going to see those people are more likely to do this, more likely to do that, and we haven't seen that type of outcome study, impact study.
True.
And because we are not being given kind of hard facts and to say, hard data to say, when you do this, it does impact the development and the functionality of your society. People can sit back and say, yeah, because it's not something real. It's not something that they. How do they know that the head of the national bank wasn't abused? How do they know that? They don't know, because there's nothing that gives us any kind of tangible results to say this is what we're looking at down the line. This is people like Marilyn and Afi and whoever else who wants to raise their voices and say, you should stop. But as a society, we haven't learned that actually these impacts and these effects and these consequences are real.
It's interesting, because in contrast to the lack of outrage, so to speak, and open response to this, there was a robbery at a business place on the Bayfront 2 Saturdays ago.
Yeah.
Within 2 weeks, the perpetrators have been found and caught.
Afi, do you know, this evening I heard the news. This evening or this morning? Whichever, the days can blended in quickly. I heard news today that said 5 people had been apprehended in response to this, 1 being female. Mm-hmm. And I said, the words that came to my mouth was, wow, already?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And in the case of child sexual abuse and sexual offenses, the response is, on the other end of that celestial spectrum, we'll try to get to the act by the end of the year, okay? We'll try to fix it.
And you have to ask, what is more valuable?
Right.
Are we looking at, is jewelry, watches, necklaces,
more
etc.
valuable
more valuable than our children?
Yep. Then another interesting contrast and contradiction, which may have lessons. Have you seen the lines of people in Royal Bank recently?
I was told, I haven't been in there.
I've been in there. I do some banking business with Royal. Mm-hmm. I mean, people by the hundreds are outraged that an additional $25 per month is charged by the bank to keep, and they have taken matters into their own hands and with their own feet,
become active.
And so outraged that they'll go and stand in line for hours to get that account closed. Contrast with child sexual abuse. Somebody gets named as an abuser, gets charged as an abuser, is arrested and charged, has to give up his public office and public position, and that person is celebrated by both men and women. Sometimes it's the contrast and the contradictions of things in our society that maybe help us see things And as I was saying to two colleagues today, it's been some years now. I take positions and act on them, not for any other reason than it's an act of conscience, Marilyn. I believe it's the right thing to do, and I don't care if there's nobody else interested. But if it is the right thing to do and I feel that I can do something about it, and I'm sufficiently outraged, I will stand up. And one by one, hopefully, people will line up and we'll get something done. But we do have a mentality where everybody goes to the concert, stands outside, but nobody goes in. They say, it's still early, man, it's still early. They'll go and peep and say, but nobody inside. No, well, nobody's inside because you didn't go inside. and the show waits, and the organizers wait and say, well, we'll wait 15 more minutes, we'll give them. Why? That's not quote-unquote first world behavior, is it? You and I know, having lived in modern industrial societies, if the show is at 7:07, curtain up at 7:07, regardless. Why are we making such an awful mistake?
But I think what's happening as well, though, Afi, is that we are kind of lumping everything. We're kind of lumping everything together, and child sexual abuse is no different. What I've noticed is, there is a lack of outrage because it's just another thing that's going on in Dominica. It's just another thing to talk about. People are not really seeing the significance of it. And that's a big problem. But if you don't see something as an issue, then why are you going to address it? Don't fix it if it's not broken. If they don't see that it's broken, then why are people going to fix it? You're asking people to get enraged and be angry and give a response to something that we believe will have a significant negative impact on our society moving forward, because it has a significant negative effect here and now, right now, with that 5-year-old or 6-year-old or 4-year-old or 12-year-old or 14 or 15 or whatever. It has that negative effect now. That negative effect is not going to go away. It's going to fester and it's going to grow, because people, unless they are given, a significant quality of counseling and nurturing and support to get through that, never let it go. It cannot leave you.
Right.
It's in the same way, because there is a death that happens to a young person that goes through that, because there is something that is taken from them, and that is a death. Something in them dies because they don't feel in control. They feel they have been overpowered. They have been taken advantage of, and the maturer and more awareness there is of that situation, is the harder it is to let it go, because the young person starts to feel dirty. They start to feel, did I cause this? Did I bring it on myself? Did I act a certain way? And then there are other elements that come into play, whether they were threatened or whatever, and this stays with that young person. For an adult person, think of what it feels like to you, what it felt like to you when you lost if you, God forbid, if you lost a parent or a loved one, somebody near and dear to you, somebody close to you. And each anniversary, each year that passes of that person's passing, does it feel better? Does it feel any easier? Does it feel any nicer? Do you miss that person any more, any less than you missed them the day it happened? You do not, and you will not. And 20 years' time, you will still feel the gap of where that person once was in your life, because you will look back over all of the stages of things in your life that person is no longer part of and have missed out on. And it's the same thing that happens to a person who's been abused. They carry that with them, and it does not go away. People have to find something in their life that Find something that allows you to to feel and understand and be more compassionate, to empathize with a person who's gone through abuse. You have to find a way of, we have to allow people to find a way to connect with the damage that it does, the impact that it does to an individual, and subsequently the impact that that is going to have on a society, on relationships. Do you know how many people have a huge difficulty having relationships moving forward, even if they go through, getting married and having children or whatever? There are elements of themselves that they're never able to open up and share with the person that they're sharing their life with the person that they're having children with. We just do not seem to understand. It's not. I don't.
It's quite actually. It's interesting you put your finger on buttons there that are very personal, very close to me. 54 years ago, my brother died in the Carnival fire. I was 17, 16, 17. And with every passing year, it's got worse. Hurricane David. It was my Hurricane David, my personal Hurricane David. More so because I was on the scene and I saw him burn alive. So it's not something I will ever forget if I live to be 125. Hurricane David I mentioned, but there are lots of people alive who experience Hurricane David. But listening to Cecil Shillingford today on the radio, I realized that we seem to have unlearned. I mean, he was. I could hear the pain in Cecil's voice as he pleaded for us to recall matters of preparedness and resilience and mitigation, because we seem to have unlearned and already forgotten in less than a generation, what it meant to have a tropical storm phenomenon, a hurricane phenomenon like David. Erica will soon be forgotten if it isn't already. And so it has probably something to do with who we are, our society, our level of education and training. We're going to take some calls. Good evening, caller. Why don't you be the first caller?
Yeah, good evening, comrade. Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm enjoying this conversation. I usually don't follow your program because I'm usually content with the summary. I call. I want to reach that sister a little bit across the table from you.
Yes.
Sometimes we arrive at summaries where we confuse effect with cause, and I think this is happening in this conversation. And I really wanted to point at it. You see, the case of not caring is we cannot subscribe to that. We cannot subscribe to that.
Mm-hmm.
That really doesn't exist in a mother's nature. It doesn't exist. It doesn't exist. What we have in Dominica is a breakdown of civic institutions.
Okay.
A breakdown of civic institutions. And so the replacement is political polarization. And so in that political polarization, there is really no effective institution that can empower people to make these expressions occur without that political polarization affecting them. So it is not that parents didn't want to come to Point Michel last Saturday. It's not that parents know that they don't want to stand up for these kids. People know, people care. But we have a breakdown of civic institutions. And if there is a case to be made of why we really have to deal with this, we have to attack this undemocratic condition in our country. It is around this issue.
Okay.
Because we have to rebuild the civic institutions for us to be able to empower these people, empower the poor, empower them so they can take a stand for their kids, because it is not that they don't care. There is a disenfranchisement, a disempowerment of the ability to stand up. And so I want us not to sum this around that, but to sum it around what we really have to do and what the problem really is.
Well, I was going to ask you to share some of your thoughts on what do you see as some of the triggers and pathways towards that revitalization of our civic sense.
Well, there was a beautiful thing happened last week, on the public sector workers program, and it hasn't been picked up because people are on this. But these brothers came together to form an organization, a non-political organization, and that is. I wish next week on your program you can really bring Brother Later in and expand the conversation, because hearing is the key. Hearing is the key. In all struggles and institutions of struggle, you have to have non-governmental, non-political organizations. People assimilate around that kind of concept much more efficiently, much more willingly than these political camps. And so we're being divided in this political camp, and it's disenfranchising people even more.
Okay.
So I think there's a beautiful moment just happened this week under the radar, but we really have to take it and expand it.
Okay. Thank you very much for that, my brother. Appreciate it.
My brother.
Good. Marilyn, any reaction?
I hear what he's saying, and I hear what he's saying. I agree. I understand that. It still starts within us as human beings.
Each individual one of us.
It has to come from within us. We can create NGOs and organizations and institutions, and yes, as a civil society, we need to see the institutions and organizations that encourage that within us. But we're human beings. Our nature is to care, is to love, is to nurture, is to. So I'm struggling with the fact that, we need these institutions to bring us back in line.
Let's get somebody to struggle with us. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
A pleasant, peaceful night to the panel and to the listening audience.
Yes,
it's
ma'am.
a very good program.
Thank you.
Stressful, painful, distressful, and all other adjectives to describe it like that. But the government, the magistrate, the police, the politicians, the barefoot man, everybody contribute to that sexual abuse one way or the other. And those that are in position to put legislation to drag their feet, because they are the very same ones too that are involved in that sexual thing there. They can put laws, they can put legislation, they can do what they want, but I am making them know that this Dominica Day is not going to live like that. And when fathers will be very sorry in the end to see what is going on with their children, they will forget about the law and they will just do what they have to do right in front of the magistrate. It's just a matter of time. They don't take heed and they think that we are instigating violence. We are not instigating violence, but when you cannot get justice and you feel enough is enough, your back is against the wall, you cannot basically will retaliate. Let them do not take heed and thinking that. When they have a marijuana case from the holy people, the very same weekend, the next Monday they call it. When they have the sexual abuse cases, it takes a whole how many years before they end. And first of all, if a child has been sexually molested and the doctor proves it, you're not supposed to bring the child to court to testify anything. It's supposed to be just the doctor's report and you go ahead with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, my dear. Appreciate it. Definitely. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
Marty, how you doing, sir?
Fine. Thank you very much for calling, sir.
Yeah, Mr. Marty, I don't want to seem controversial, but I think it's a point that I want to bring forward. Mr. Marty, if I were to say to you this evening that I wanted to work out a woman, I wanted to put a woman's leg up and work her out, I wanted to decalate her, what would you say to me, sir?
Well, I don't know what I would say, honestly. Depends on what what relationship you and I have had before. You and I, are you a friend of mine? Or are you just...
Well, I'm saying to you, from a woman's standpoint, I want to decalate a woman.
Why would you want to decalate anybody?
I want to put a leg up. I want to do certain things.
Okay, but that sounds like you're trying to do some violence to somebody, so go ahead.
No, Mr. Mate, you see what you're just saying? That this is your reaction. You're surprised that I would utter these words, and your first reaction is that you think that I want to be or do some violence to some woman. That was your reaction.
Yeah, that was like one. Yeah.
Your colleague on the in studios with you,
Marilyn,
may have maybe turned her nose up, or maybe be disgusted based on what I have just said.
No,
But
no.
Mr. Mate, and this is something that we have to look at.
Okay.
The words that I have just expressed is the words of songs that the Triple K band, the WCK band, and all of these bands in Dominica that
Okay.
a lot of people support, they enjoy, you know, on a continuous basis. You have the old, you have the respectable, you have the marginalized, you have the poor, the middle class, the well-to-do, so on and so forth. In terms of Dominica terms, all of them, they enjoy, they jump to these bands. These bands go out into the world and they represent Dominica. The young women, the young men, they enjoy the rhythm, the lyrics of these things. But here ends the danger. The lyrics, this is the lyrics, that these bands that so-called represent us in the world. And these bands are bands that have significant influence on our young people. And yet for all, the society, even the political parties, they use these bands. They use these bands to represent them. They even give them awards. And nobody in society takes a look critically at the lyrical content that these bands put out.
Very good point.
And these lyrical content have a significant influence on the mindset and the reactions of young people, as well as respectable individuals, how they treat women or men in the society.
Yes.
And that is a critical point, Mr. Martin. I have not
Thanks for
really
that.
heard
Thanks for
your
that.
conversation brings out, because this is where the crux of the matter is.
Okay.
You might be talking something here which is very important, but the young person, male or female, would not necessarily listen to you. They might look at you and say, this guy is old, this guy doesn't know what he's talking, this crap. But they would listen to the Triple Ks, the WCKs, and so on and so forth, these bands. And nobody seems to let these people know that they have a critical responsibility in the society to change the mindset.
Okay.
So, Mr. Mate, the music that comes out, these sorts of lyrical content destroys our young people. And that is why we have in our society a lot of these things going on, the sexual exploitation. If you look at the young women out there, they're naked on the streets. And nobody seems to be speaking about that. So unless, Mr. Mate, we can change our lyrical content in terms of these young bands,
Yeah.
we are spinning top in back, Mr. Mate.
Okay.
That's the point I wanted to bring.
Thank you, brothers. Appreciate
I'd like
it.
to hear your view.
Powerful
and
point.
relate to what we just
Yeah.
said. Thank you, Mr. Mate.
Okay, brothers. In fact, a few weeks ago, we had Benji and Dice in right here, and both of them are now parents, actually. Benji and Dice. They have little babies and they have youngsters, and it's amazing the change I've noticed in them. I've noticed the change in Dice because I follow him a bit more closely. But I've also noticed the change, the rounding off of the edges of Benji. I've noticed an extension of Triple K into other genres of music that are not just the classical bouillon.
It's a maturing.
It's a maturing process. And Benji and Dice have both given their word that I'm glad the caller brought it back up, but they have both given their word that they would like to be a part of an ongoing campaign that would actually put the business of caring for and loving our children at the center. We're going to take another call and then we're going to take a break and then we come right back. If we can get this caller. Caller, you're right on, and you are...
Mr. Mate.
Yes, caller, go right ahead.
It's a caller that I've never been ashamed to call and say who's calling. Mr. Martin, that's Williams calling.
Williams.
Yes, Royston Williams.
Oh, Royston, how are you, man?
I'm doing very good.
Okay, my friend. Thank you. Marilyn is here too. You might say hello.
Slow to speak.
Yeah.
slow to very slow to speak. I usually tell myself, let me consult my brain before my mouth speaks. And let it become a bleeding toilet in my mouth.
Yes.
I believe the caller had made a very good point.
Yeah.
But let me say to the caller, on a biblical point of view, when I was a child, I speak like a child. I act like a child.
Mm-hmm.
Now I become a man. I put away childish things. Life is a growing process.
Mm-hmm.
Maturity does not come overnight, Mr. Martin. It comes sometimes for some of us at a very quick pace, and for others at a very slow pace.
Mm-hmm.
It may have come to me at a very slow pace. But when it comes at a slow pace, when it comes slowly, I think you understand better what is life.
Mm-hmm.
I am one that believes that this band will learn and have learned their lesson
Mm-hmm.
and will improve. I don't think we should be quick to condemn them because we too were young.
Mm-hmm.
And young people know it's a matter. It's not just Triple K or WCK or Serenity or any of the bands. Young people now are modeling what they see on the internet in particular. And we cannot escape. We cannot run away from the fact that there are some things on the internet that are very demonic, that are spiritually wrong. And thus, a lot of our young people imitate. Are you there with me?
I'm there, we're here. Both Marilyn
A
and
lot of our
myself.
young people imitate. Now, the question is, what do we do about it? Mr. Mate, it starts in the home. It starts in the home because when a young girl in particular dressed and she tells her mom and dad she's going out, they should look at the dressing. Look at how she's dressed.
True.
But most of the time they don't. The child walk out the door and they don't even know. And just to find out she's naked on the street. Now, what do you expect people like me to do as a man? People like John to do? You know, because we are men. Men will look at things and they'll see things and temptation will be strong. That some can resist and some cannot.
But you're an adult.
Exactly. You know, I'm an adult. I'm a friend. When I see people like me, I mean, I'm different to young people, but even adults, even, you know, it is frightening, even adults. It seems the temptation is out there, even worse, where adults are concerned.
But when an adult gives into that temptation vis-a-vis a young, what is obviously a minor, what is your assessment?
If you understand what I'm saying.
I do.
But I quite agree with you. But I'm saying this to say that the influence out there is rather demonic. It's evil.
Okay.
You know, and I'm saying this to say to the caller that unless people or we adults can begin to speak mature, to behave mature, and to act responsible, what do you expect the young people to do?
Agreed.
When already there is an influence that is poisonous.
Yeah.
Poisoning the young people, my brother. And
Right.
instead of us as adults being examples, what do we do in the end?
Mm-hmm.
We join the bandwagon
For sure.
and we are glorified for it. We are glorified for it because we can defend it no matter what cost it comes with. My bro, heaven has done it.
you.
I'm listening.
I'm in the studio.
Thank you, caller. Thanks so much for your
Are you
contribution.
coming? Yeah.
I would say, in response to some of what both callers said, Afi, I'm not sure that you know it can be. Everything can be, so much can be attributed to just to the music. I mean, I understand what the first caller is saying, and that attention needs to be brought to that. And likewise with the second caller. However, I agree with the second caller more, I think, because there is an element that says, you know, young people will be young people and they enjoy what young people enjoy. But it's how do we structure our homes? How do we discipline and manage our children? How do we educate and inform our children? How, when he makes reference to, young people, a young girl leaving her home in a certain form of dress, parents are not aware, whatever, you've been young, we've all been young. Young people can be very tricky and deceiving when they want to be. So maybe a young girl will go out with her friends, she will dress in a certain way to leave home, and then, there's something else hidden in the bottom of the bag, or whatever is going to be worn is at her friend's home, or, so on and so forth. So I don't think it's entirely, we can't hinge everything, I don't think, on music and young people. I agree entirely with the caller that mentioned that maturity comes at different stages for different people. It's never something, it's either going to come quickly or it's going to come slow, dependent on your life exposure, what you've been exposed to, what your environment is teaching you. We have a responsibility when it comes to the nature of our music. I have heard Calypsonians being brought to task on the content of their lyrical content and so on.
On that note.
I've heard that a lot, writers being told, mind what you say and how you say it and so on and so forth. But yes, maybe on the other genre of music locally, maybe we need to pay a little bit more attention there as well. These are all elements that contribute to who we are as a society. And I think there is sometimes there's finger wagging to be done across the board.
We'll be right back.
Walks hand in hand with the system. Time cast its shadow on. Much harder days to come. These are the days of darkness. Low men in high office. Respect is lost even in schools. Whoa, whoa. These are the days when honesty, honor and integrity seems to be the treasures of a fool. Whoa. These are the days of deception. These are the days of destruction. If everything says these are the days, then these are the days. Whoa, these are the days. Whoa, 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 whoa. Na 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 na. World of hunger, diseases with no cure, unrest and uprisings everywhere. Reality.
Well, in addition to the dice, we have somebody else in studio who has a connection to actually the music you've just been listening to. Mr. Pat Invincible Aaron has just walked into our studio at my invitation. And Pat is here. Welcome, Pat. Thank you so much for coming by. And it's interesting you're walking just at the time where we took a call from someone who was raising concerns about the lyrics in song. He was speaking about Triple K lyrics and decalé women and things. And Marilyn was responding as you were walking in, saying, "Yeah, it's crucial, yes, but it comes with other things, and it's in a certain context." And all genres of music have their pluses and minuses in regards to this. But I wonder if you, as a writer and as a presenter, a Calypsonian yourself of note in your day, what's the story here as you look back on the years of lyrics and issues like child sexual abuse, other issues in society? Is there some blame or some role in the lyrics of the songs that we produce and sing and get people to dance and sing to over the years? Is some role that plays in either making us more vulnerable to the offense or more difficult to become outraged? What is that role, Pat? Or is it something that crosses your mind when you write words like the song that we were listening to. These are the days.
Good night, Afi. Thank you for having me. Marilyn, good night as well.
Good evening, good evening.
Let me say hello to all listeners to Q95 at this time. Yes, Afi, to answer bluntly, the lyrics put out by singers and songwriters definitely has an impact on our everyday life. That is why in many countries where you have had oppressive leaders, you have found writers, agitators, poets being put under the gun, because these are the people who put out the words that represent the feelings of the people, and dictators and oppressors don't like that. Now, if our songs represented a higher level, you would find the young people and the aspiring toward the higher level. If the lyrics represent sexual or lower connotation, it makes it much easier for people to adapt to it. Like you were saying a while ago, just before I stepped in, you all were on that topic. It's almost like it was but the thing is, nature, God, the world is alive, and vibrations are things that are very real and very strong, and many times we don't understand it, but I always say the universe is alive. So my coming in here might not be, I don't think it is coincidence.
No.
The universe is alive. And that is one of the greatest consolations we have in this life here, because when in a situation like what Dominica is going through now, which is a very strange situation for people like us to understand what is happening to our people, the greatest consolation is that there is a greater force always at play, and it will soon come to an end. All these add to understanding that the universe is alive. Man has his plans, man has his way, but the universe is alive and it's always at work.
Marilyn, Pat has introduced a deeply philosophical, spiritual element in our conversation, which I like very much, because it's an element we are very shy to talk about. Because somehow that we think that things spiritual are just that, and not pertinent to things physical. Well, in fact, they are part of the same.
Where ignorance is bliss, and we're living in ignorance, we live in dire ignorance. We're living in a time where people want or choose to be ignorant, and therefore, where ignorance is bliss, wisdom is folly.
But Pat, you and I grew so-called children of the 70s, right? We grew up in a Dominica where it wasn't free speech, Speech was free.
Yes.
And there's a big difference between free speech and speech being free. We spoke, we argued, we debated, but it was always on point, or mostly on point. I watched my father's generation engage in that. We engaged in that. I watched sportsmen, after a good sweat in the Windsor Park, spend till 6, 7, 8 o'clock at night.
Yes,
Combermere fellas still there debating. Patrick John, all these guys, debating social issues. Not talking about woman and Dekale, but social issues. Is it because of ABC? What is the ABC that made us focus? And what happened to that ABC that seems to have created a vortex of ignorance, so to speak? What has happened? And who wins and who loses?
Well, if there are winners, the winners are losers as well, even if they don't know it. And there are certain things that have contributed to that. I think before, in those days, what we had was radio to listen to. And in those days, you wanted to communicate with somebody overseas, you wrote a letter, it took 2 weeks to go, 2 weeks to come back. So, but no.
Wow.
Nowadays, you can talk to
So
anybody
true.
anywhere in the world, interactive, speak, they respond. We have been exposed to television, pornography, porn stars, and the musical part of it is very integral in that too, because before, calypsos, when it was carnival time, you would hear 1 or 2 songs, a little below the belt, but that was that was just flavoring, the calypso. But now, although now we're not so much into that, but especially the young bands that are more chanters than singers. Like you were saying, in things like Wood Them, maybe can I go deeper, and those kind of
break down she back door. What is that?
Yes, so
kicking the back door.
So when that is what young people are very what are I'm looking for? They're very impressionable.
Yes, yeah.
They're very impressionable, and they follow the crowd. They follow what's popular.
Yes.
So what is popular, if it's not in a spiritual vein or in an uplifting vein, in a right vein, in a progressive vein,
Can have a negative.
the Pied Piper.
Okay. Somebody follows.
Yeah, the Pied Piper.
But Marilyn, let's take a look at.
Wait a while, and there's another side to that, There are, which is what really has me wondering, because it's not just the young people. There are older people in our age group who learned the right things, and who knew the right things, and suddenly, we were people, we were conscious about our conscience. And suddenly, you're wondering what happened. How are they able to pack their conscience aside? I don't know how they can do that, because we were all in the reasoning together. We grew up together. We were reasoning together. We knew all the right things, and they're gone totally on the other side. That is one of the dangers of it. It makes you wonder: were they real, or were they hypocrites at the time, or are they real now, or are they hypocritical now?
But it maybe that was the Pied Piper effect in that time as well, because it was right and proper for them to follow what was being done by the majority at that time.
Yeah.
So when people had those values, those traditional values, and recognized that they had a conscience and they did behave according to that, because there was I grew up with those teachings from parents of a generation prior to yours. And that's what I grew up with. Not in Dominica though.
Yeah.
But they grew up with it here in Dominica. And they traveled abroad. And they took it with them. And they passed it on to their children. So if you have now, you can identify persons of your own generation who have decided that's not really for me. That means that the generation that they are responsible for nurturing didn't get it. It has been missed. And there are several areas where you can see. The person spoke about young people. I was a young person. I'm still a relatively young person.
You're a young person.
When I was a very young person,
okay.
I enjoy carnival. Yeah. And when I was a young person, I really enjoyed carnival. And I used to go out, and sometimes I would go to carnival in the UK and play mass. And the costumes are skimpy. Other times I would be just a reveler like everybody else, and I would wear skimpy. But my conscience of who I am and how I behave and how far I go came from where I came from. What was given to me? What was right and proper for me as a young woman, how to behave and conduct myself.
Foundation.
And if that foundation is not provided, and if we see it was there from our grandparents and parents and so on and so forth, and it's been passed down, there is clearly elements of certain generations where we lost a large proportion of our migrants, where people went to the US, they went to the UK during the 50s and the 60s and so on. Some of those, I look at my aunts who took their families or began their families in the US. And actually the values that were instilled into me with my parents in the UK, both coming from the same household, are very different from my cousins who were brought up by the same generation in the US, because they chose to leave those things behind. Daddy tell me that all my life. I don't want my children to go through that. And parents have this tendency to say they want their children to have what they didn't have, and they forget that there is a huge value on what they did have. And when they decide to put that to one side and do it their own way, here you go, where we are today.
Let me share some. Maybe this is the right time to do it. I've been talking to young people, younger than you, Marilyn.
Yeah.
Young people in Dominica over the last few weeks about this child sexual abuse thing, because I'm one of those who has an undying faith in young people. Not a blind faith. I know as young persons we're weak, but I do believe that they are the future.
Yes.
And I sat down at my house and I wrote down the kinds of observations that they were making. And I want to share some of them, because sometimes we believe we place young people in a kind of a glob, just a mass, but there are some deep thinking young people in our society, and we wonder why. For example, we were talking about outrage before, Marilyn. We wonder why they're not outraged, why they still COing, but they are multitasking. They are thinking, Here's some of the questions I got from young people, because I was talking to them. Why do you think the society is not responding? Why are we not getting outraged and so on? And so I'd ask them, these are kids on the block. These are some motorcycle kids. These are young musicians. These are just young people, unemployed, some employed. Listen to the kinds of, these are my notes, but kind of just think of this as being in response to my question of, who should respond to this child sexual abuse and why are we not responding? Listen to some of the things. They would ask, can priests and pastors who have been revealed as having inappropriate relations with children and women respond? What do you expect, Mr. Mate? You expect those people to respond?
Very true.
They said, can public officials who themselves have had inappropriate contact with children and youth when they go seeking a job or something, you expect those people to respond, Mr. Mate? Third question. Can public officials who have facilitated passage quickly, and this is their word, of this thing they call the asset, what it is, Mr. Mate? This asset bill that passed in one sitting of parliament. You expect those kind of people to do the same thing for children, for child sexual abuse, Mr. Mate? Those people not concerned about that. Just think of these responses coming from young people. Can women who betray the legacy of their husbands by colluding with those who kill their husbands respond? And we know who they're talking about.
Definitely.
So don't believe that generation is not following. They're paying attention. Can women who sit silently next to men who violate women be expected to respond? Young people. Can men who disrespect women in word and deed, and as I remember asking that particular young fella, what do you mean? Mr. Mate, you don't remember that fella in parliament who was talking about what we like to eat, whether it's thighs or breasts or something? What do you think he was talking about, Mr. Mate? That was a minister of government. Yeah. So young people are listening. Then here's another question. Can men who have arranged and paid for abortions be expected to show outrage at child sexual abuse?
So that means, Afi, we have very few people available to raise,
to be outraged.
to be
People in high places.
So we have very few people left to be outraged about child sexual abuse, because everybody else is, or most of us are guilty in one way or another, and we would like the bars lowered to meet our standards. So it won't be me alone, it will be me and Afi and Marilyn, all of us. So not being that guilty, all of us guilty.
That age of consent issue was raised by young people. Mr. Mate, you expect those fellas like young girls. Even more than us, they're like young girls. So you expect them to raise the age of consent to 18? No. They would want to lower it. Do you understand? And this is, I've just paraphrased a series of conversations over weeks, because this thing is inside of me, and it will not leave until something definitive happens. And so I'm talking to everybody, grandmothers, grandfathers, young people, about this. And if it's one thing every single person in the country understands, is sex. So they know who the children are, and they understand the word abuse. Abuse means to use in the wrong way. You can abuse a computer, you can abuse a phone, you can abuse a bike, you can abuse. So they understand that when we say child sexual abuse, let us never believe that people don't understand. They do. And most important, as reflected by some of these kind of issues raised by young people, they know. And guess what? With every passing day, they are losing more and more respect. This is why they behave so disrespectfully to us. It's because we haven't earned their respect. We have not earned their respect. How many adults say, "Good morning, young man. Good morning, young lady. How are you?" Instead, the adults are catcalling. "But look at that! No, honey, meat, fresh meat." I have heard it myself.
I have heard it. I have had this, discussions with guys who would tell me, "Young talking to the boy," and things on. And they do it to me several times, and they still haven't realized I don't respond to that. But they're so busy, we caught up in their thing, they don't realize that sometimes you're saying that to the wrong person. Because, it is something that, for me, it's very difficult to understand that a grown man would find himself
attracted to.
Well, you can be attracted, but respectfully, but to be turned on,
by a child.
By a child, it is, and the level has become so low in Dominica. A woman from Scott said, somebody asked her, "What do you think? What do you think about the by-election and so on, the child sexual abuse situation?" He said, "You're too cafe." So that means people have lost their standards. They just agree to everything, and anything now. And particularly in the cases where these men have children, young girls coming up, I think they will only get outraged when it happens to their child. You know.
Except there are men abusing their own children.
Yes, well,
and
yes,
women
yes,
abusing
yes,
their own children as
yes,
well.
Yes.
Which is such a horrible.
Afi, do you think if we have to be a little biblical or scriptural, maybe we live in the last days, Marilyn?
I would say.
Maybe we live in the times when it is necessary that we fulfill the books, and this come to pass for there to be a massive cleansing.
But there are we had an earlier caller who raised a point I want to let Pat interact with about the issue is about the organizations in civil society, the issues about institutions that used to have that as their mission to cleanse, to nurture, to guide. You and I grew up in that period, Pat.
Yeah.
And you walk down the street, you meet a nun or a priest or headmaster or police officer or even a drugstore owner or whatever. Everybody was an authority figure.
Yeah.
And you had to be on your P's and Q's. Who are the authority figures now? Who are the people in authority and how are they behaving in authority? And is that not the trigger, even more so than the lyrics of Triple K or any other group? Is that not the trigger?
Maybe more, you're right. Maybe more so. Maybe more so, because these are the people who uphold the standards of society. The priests, the doctors, the judges, the magistrates, the lawyers, the teachers particularly, the head teachers. And when these people now become part of the problem, who is going to be part of the solution?
I just got a message, Afi, from Francis Joseph, who's listening in the
UK. In UK.
Yeah.
That guy, Francis, is stay up late, boy.
He's out.
Oh, he's out. Okay.
He said he was attending the Isidore celebrations in East London.
Okay.
St. Isidore. So he's just, contributing to the conversation.
Of
He's
course.
actually making the point, as Pat is saying, the elderly and the prominent people in society who are abusing and taking advantage of young women and our girls and are protected by who? By their contemporaries. He said it's not just necessarily the songs and the music, and this is a huge issue, as you're saying. So it does beg the question again: who is left to be outraged, to raise?
Who is left to outrage?
We have a caller. Let's see if we can take a few of them. Good evening, caller. You're live with us. Pat Aaron is in studio with Marilyn Isles and myself, Ati Martin. Thanks for joining us.
Good evening, Afi.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening, Pat. Good evening, Marilyn.
Hey, good evening. How are you?
I've been listening to most of the conversation, not all of it. And I don't know. I want to put a different spin on all of this.
Of course, go right ahead.
When I examine it, I'm saying that maybe we're looking at the problem at the end and not at the beginning. In the sense that if we accept that we pattern our lives on the behavior of others for, I don't know, hundreds of years, and maybe it is the basis of those things on which we are based our lives on, that's where the problem is. Because when you think about it, everything that we have in Dominica now that we abhor and we find shocking has existed or exists in the places on which we pattern our lives.
True.
So that makes it now, because take for example, as the thing changes, and as we know there's nothing permanent in life, as things change where, if for example we take the issue of children, where children once upon a time were almost glorified and sanctified and considered spiritual, and compare that to how across the board those people who we pattern our lives and we become and we act like them. The children in 2016 are by and large, like most things we interact with, are commodities, are seen as or are treated as commodities.
True.
So if it's a commodity, then I can, if it's worse, if it's my commodity, or if I think I own the commodity, then given the fact that we have also become more individualistic and think that it's only what we want and what we do that matters, then it stems from that philosophy where you're going to say, I can do what I want to those children.
Yeah.
So my point is that it's shocking to us, but it's not really shocking because it doesn't cause outrage because the young people and everybody else, our whole psychology of it is already programmed to see it as a commodity. So I accept what somebody said earlier, that we are all part of it because we we participate in that concept of the making things, everything is a commodity that can be bought and sold, etc., etc. So maybe it's the basis of what we copy. That's where the defect is. And maybe that's what we need to be examined, because as we all know, the unexamined life is not worth living. So we maybe need to examine those bases of those things we've come to hold dear. As to, for example, what is the purpose and function of sex in human life? Where do children really come from, and why do we have children? Do children choose us? Do we just carry children? Are we just vessels for bringing children into the world and they don't really belong? And all those things. And I am saying that maybe it's the basis, the origin, or what we base our activity on. Maybe that's where, because we cannot assume that this was perfect, and we can assume at our own peril that these bases were correct and perfect. They may have been very wrong because it's human beings.
You would be suggesting, caller, that maybe if we had a different set of a different source on which we had predicated our values, and that the results would have been different. Like,
yes, because don't forget, we are humans living in the universe, and the same thing we have all based on our
culture,
our notions and our preconceived things. There are other human beings in other countries who are getting married to 12-year-olds and 13-year-olds and all that type of stuff.
True.
And among those human beings, those things are accepted. So what I'm saying is that our angst and our anxiety related to it is maybe being placed at the end. And maybe we should more examine the beginning, how we come to know these things. Where did we get these things from? Are they are they of us? Yeah, so that are they so correct?
Yeah.
Maybe they're incorrect, most of them.
Well,
so that's my little view.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you, Bruds. Appreciate the call all the time.
That's another view of it, But I am also aware, we are all aware that in the different cultures that make up the world, there are cultures that keep a low base level. There are cultures where women are nothing. You understand? And there are cultures where men have killed their women for making them a girl child. There are cultures where, like you say, you marry a 12-year-old, 11-year-old girl. So there are cultures that don't live to seek the higher levels, because that human beings supposed to seek. Otherwise, that puts us as animals. We just put on a pants and a shirt, or dress and a skirt, but we are really animals. And even animals have their limits.
That's right.
You understand? Animals, I mean, I love dogs. I always have dogs, and I notice the dogs don't. While the female dog is young, the dogs don't, worry them until the dogs feel they are of age.
Let's take a caller, Pat. Hold your any more. Caller, go right ahead, please.
Hello, good evening, Afi.
Good evening, sir.
Pat.
Yes, sir.
And the young lady that
Marilyn.
Marilyn. I was just calling to strengthen which a point which you made earlier on about after football, Patrick John in Windsor Park arguing. I could remember as a child when we were in Port Elizabeth, all we after football, we go Goodwill, go and get kin, and all 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock, we sit down and this having a discussing.
That's right. That's right.
And then there's another point I want to make. When the place that's supposed to pass the law, can you remember a house in town that's called Mabozo?
Mm-hmm.
Kaima Bozo? You could remember where it was situated?
I remember the name. I don't remember where it was, honestly.
Well, that house, you see, tobacco factory, the Indian and them at the store.
Yes.
Well, that what belongs to
Balson House.
Right.
Right.
So, you know the reason why they was calling their Kaima Bozo?
No.
Right. So, when you have our parliament...
No, we don't know the reason. Tell us.
When you have Kaima Bozo, when you have parliament just like Kaima Bozo, you expect them to go and pass laws to correct things?
Okay.
You can't expect that. Now, there's another thing which I know, I made a survey which I learned when I was going to school. If you pass in from me and two people stand up speaking, if you want to pass in the center of the people, you ask them, excuse me, please, and then they stop speaking based on the condition, and then you pass to the brush in your net and then you pass in your center. So that's how the world goes.
Okay.
Look like.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, caller, thank you very much. Pat, Marilyn, I mean...
I was making a point in terms of...
I was saying to Afi, linked to what I was saying about, I guess there are cultures that perpetuate the basis part of our humanity. And there are other cultures that seek to find the heights of humanity. So, if there is, in the absence of seeking to find the heights of humanity, we are no better than animals. Like I say, with the advantage is we stand on our 2 feet, we can think ahead, we can plan ahead, but if we don't draw those lines, these are things we will not do, then we are no different from the animals. And there's something else, more practically, I wonder if some of our colleagues have succeeded in unlearning what they've learned, because I think part of it too, we believe more strongly in there being a heaven and a hell, and I think more and more people are convincing themselves that that's nonsense, that don't really exist. So guys are not, because with man, what keeps man on track or disciplined is the fear.
The threat of punishment.
Yes, threat of punishment.
Or
nobody wants to go to hell.
Or the promise of reward.
Yeah, nobody wants to go to hell. Even so if people begin convincing themselves that that's just folktale, that is just philosophy.
Let me challenge that a little bit. It may not be so much that we've given up on that principle, so much as we've shortened the time frame. The promise of reward, fine, we want it, but we want it now. Now.
Yeah.
The threat of punishment, okay, I'll do whatever you tell me to do, but make sure I get my piece. And so the gift giving, the bribing, the passing of money, the galvanized, the cheating, the this, is part of, it challenges that more longer term, philosophical life look.
I want it right now,
But it is now, and if we go back to what one of our callers was making, the point he was making before about the beginning or the end, what are we looking at in terms of analyzing and looking at why we got to this point? We had that long view. We were taught as children that you will not get this now. You will wait. Your birthday is in October. You will get this for your birthday. End of story. Don't bring it up again. End of story.
But if I could just add, one of the things that when you raised with the comments made by the young people, one of the things they talked about was the priests and pastors. Dominica traditionally, historically, has been developed and grown as a Christian society. And what we're recognizing more and more, when you talk about people deciding that they're not so concerned about the heaven and hell anymore, there's not that threat or that concern, so that consciousness has been kind of pushed to one side because
they're freeing up now.
You're kind of
let's free up.
Now. If you do that, because what was your base of your, what was fundamentally your foundation, whether it was a Christian focus, whether it was a biblical principle, whether it was predicated by the church and the strength of the church in the Caribbean at one time, which fed into the consciousness of people. And a lot of people have moved away from that. And they've moved away from that not because of any other reason than questioning the validity of the church and recognizing that there is so much going on in the church and so many fingers being pointed at the church. And now seeing that representative of the church are silent on the very same issues. Not just child sexual abuse.
And not just silent, in many cases are participants as well.
Right. And so, it makes you wonder whether or not, we're looking at what we built the foundation of who we are upon actually wasn't very strong at all. And it's because of that it's been significantly eroded, which now leaves people in pretty much a free fall. Do as you wish.
Yeah. But I just add one thing to that Christian heritage chronology for Dominica is post-Columbian, post-Columbus. Because in a real sense, the people who first were here had the long-term view of themselves and their life. They understood the earth as part of theirs, but themselves were seen as part of the earth, and whatever they did with their lives, was seen to be part of what, and so on and so on. We quickly lost that because, and one of the earlier callers made that point, and because we took on somebody else's view of.
I don't know so much that we took on. I think it was forced upon us.
Well, it was forced, but
we had no choice in the matter, really.
Well,
little choice, and those who resisted, we see in our history what happened to those who resisted. So.
And then we got, if we fast forward now to this time, when we could have got our own flag, our own national song, our own parliament, and so on and so on, and we were very bright. We went to university, we went to school, we went all over the place, and we came back. And yet, we're still not ready to.
But the foundation's missing.
Yeah. And I think that's the point what the caller was making.
And another consideration is going back to the point that the caller made about IP, I think, right? Yeah, the point he made. I'm saying to myself, okay, let's see. We had it wrong from the beginning. Let's see, it was, colonialistic thinking. Let's say we had it wrong. I think the important question is, if we have changed and we have become that, are we better off? Are we happier? Are we more productive? Do we have a better society? Are we less violent? Are we having more enjoyment? Or what is it? Because to me, the reason for living, one of the reasons for living, is to be getting better.
But Pat, the truth is there are significant numbers of our people who would answer yes, we're better off because we get CO, we get gifts, we get jobs, because all we have to do is say yes, massa, and we get the jobs, we get the scholarships, we get the promotions, we get the travel, we get the retainers, so on. So there's a growing number of people for whom that mystical reality that you pose is their reality now. Unfortunately, they also end up being the persons who are in positions in our society who are making the laws, who are making the rules, or breaking the rules to suit themselves. So it is an inevitable curling around of history that leads us to a tipping point, and that is what I think we are most afraid of. That tipping point which will say to us, you know what, brothers? You've tried everything according to the process, the book, according to the law, according to the constitution, according to this. And it hasn't worked. What do you do now? Let's take a caller. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
I see blessings to you, sir.
Hey, what's up, Tyrone?
I'm there, cool.
Yeah, are you? Are you?
Yeah, I'm cool.
Okay, Brad.
Taking it easy, you know.
Okay, fine.
And Miss Marilyn, blessings to you
Blessings,
as well.
blessings.
What's up, blessings? I went to look for you at the hospital.
I'm at home,
Yeah, that's good.
just being stubborn. No, not necessarily. I'm supposed to be at the hospital. I'm listening to the discussion from the inception, and very interesting. And I am saying, you know, there are many things. Have you heard children will be making children?
Yeah.
You know, some people use that as a justification to molest children. Something has divorced or surgically extricated the humanity from adults and the innocence from children. It could be in the junk they're feeding us with, what passes for food. It could be in all the sexual content in everything, crime, sex, violence, sorcery, or whatever they portray, the Harry Potter and all the madness the television feed into our psyche. It's not just our Triple K and all the bouillon bands. Listen to those dancehall music as well. These are very, very, very explicit in the sexual content and violence, and everything feeds into one melting pot of bouillon, coup bouillon. Everybody seems to get soiled in the filth. And you listen to a minister saying, "Oh, you can take care of all you children." So there is no concern about he and children. And you listen to one person being accused, it is alleged that molested the child, and, you know, being hailed as a hero by ministers of government. You know, and it is sickening. The prime minister, everybody hailing him up as a hero. You know? So when you watch that level of madness, and I'm talking about, take a good look at children, a lot of them at the age of 3 and 4 and 5 going, and these children you see in a level of, I don't know if they're exposed to so much carnality. The mother, father, or the uncle, whoever must be watching pornographic materials in front of them, having sex in front of them, and, you know, them children know everything. The other day I take offense to a television playing, and I said, "That's what you're playing?" And she said, "Oh, them children know everything already." My brother,
yeah,
there is something, you know, with genetics and all of that. Maybe we are conditioned through the food that we eat and drink to just be stupid and crazy and ignorant and naive and docile, because we have been dehumanized, and there is something contributing to it. And maybe it could be genetic, because it's pure a population reduction. It used to be population control, but they see they're losing the war, so maybe now it's population reduction. So maybe it's time for extermination, so more violence and crime and sex and abuse, and people no longer, 1, 2 is too many. Some people don't want none. They only want 1 or none, or 2 is too many. People are fed up with their own children. After I have my challenges with my son, there's something that is messing up the minds of the citizens of the world, and it is frightening. Thank you. Blessings.
Okay, folks, it's 7:48. Let's take a short break, and then we come back for the last 15 minutes. Let's see who is
In charge of a ministry, their weapon of choice is the pen, and there too is the whole of the treasury. But the biggest scam is the cabinet. Fool the people is the new style, and they eating every morsel of food they get, and fire trucking way up with a smile. Now they importing luxury Land Rovers, selling them but keeping it on them name. Those with these sophisticated tax dodgers have no fire trucking shame. Now they're justifying every dotish thing they do by telling we PNM do it too. Well, if that is what new politics mean, tell them to put back PNM in 2015. Statistics show there are hundreds of young members over the place, all over the place. But what they need is guidance from mentors. Too many lives going to waste, and the best place to find them is in cabinet, where immorality is the motto. Guidance from a member is an asset. There'll be fewer killings in the ghetto. So to learn to thief and stay out of trouble, have a member of cabinet as your role model. Cause the biggest gang is the cabinet. The best of the best they enjoy. They will do the crime, the time they never get. All the emphasis is on the little black boy. So I hope you gangsters get the point I'm making. Cabinet is the place to be. It will stop this vicious cycle of killing, and you'll enjoy unlimited access to money. Constitution reform taking a long time. That and every reform going to fail. The only reform we need to reduce crime is when members of cabinet start going to jail. Thank you.
That was the mighty Bali from Trinidad and Tobago.
You were sure you're singing about Dominic, eh?
Well, yeah. For sure.
I think one of the points the young people made to you that you read out there sticks in my mind, you know.
Which one is this?
Where he says, when all these people doing it, who is going to be outraged?
Yeah.
And that sticks in my mind because guilty people are not going to be outraged about things that they're guilty of.
Right.
So maybe they are, you know, more than we know, there are maybe so few people.
But you know what I'm becoming aware of, and I was, Marilyn and I at the beginning of the show, we were talking a little bit about this. Pat, I've become over the last several weeks, and maybe it's because like I said before, maybe I've been too naive about it. This thing is so widespread in our society, at every level of the society. This is not a poor people's issue.
No.
This is not a ghetto issue. This is not a yam piece or gutter village or whatever behind a bridge kind of. This is throughout the society, in the nicest homes, whether it be Goodwill, whether it be Casa Comfort, whether it be wherever. These things are happening. And there are people who know and who, in many cases, are perpetrators. There are destroyed children in every community as a result of this, boys and girls. And so, you know, it makes you realize, and I was saying to Marilyn, I had this chat with this grandmother who was holding a baby of one of her daughters, both of whom had been abused, but were now married women. And so it's intergenerational. So going back to IP's observation, whether we at the beginning or at the end, when 1, 2, 3 generations of a family can be brutalized by this phenomenon, already brutalized in some cases by the phenomenon of poverty, of unemployment, you know, of a misdirected education, and so on, because we think that putting people through school is educating them, you know, and so on, and so, you know, it got to me, Pat, that this is what destroys civilizations. This is why civilizations disappear. The Romans in history, and their orgies, and their vomitoria, and then they disappeared.
It makes sense because
it's happening.
I mean, if you go up, but when you go down and you reach the bottom, what do you expect? You know, I mean, there's nowhere else to go but disappear.
That's right. We have a caller. Good evening, caller. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, good evening, Afi, and good evening to your guests.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Afi, you know that there was a political statement made during last election when some scanty-dressed young ladies were portrayed as all sexy girls for labor.
Yeah, I remember that.
You remember that?
I remember that.
You see, so you have a political party now in government who saw our young ladies as sex symbols.
Sex objects.
Sexual symbols.
Mm-hmm.
So using them and abusing them is no problem because that's their policy. Mm-hmm. Okay, I just want to make that point.
I also remember a certain leader of a certain political party whining with Destra on the stage.
And the president of his wife too, right?
So as leaders, if we lead people in that way, we don't expect any different.
Yes, for sure.
Thank you and good night.
Okay.
So it seems we are headed down
the tubes.
Yes, we're headed down. And
any hope, Pat? Any hope? Any hope? What do we do?
You know,
what do we do now?
the million question. It seems we have to fulfill the books because these things were predicted. If you look at Revelations and if you go in biblical, and they would say that only 144,000 people would be saved. If you have to look at that, I used to say before about if all these billions of people, 4 billion people in the world. But when you look at it, 144 is a lot. You know?
Compressive.
Yeah. Yes, 144. That is to seem like a little number because we're heading down, and look, we just listened to Bali a while ago singing in Trinidad, something like he's singing about Dominica. And we're sure that is the situation in every country. Sometimes I wonder if we just defending what we stood by, what we were taught, like IP was saying, and we stood by it, and maybe we cannot accept the change or we cannot change with the change. But what I do know for sure is that life has a purpose, and man in life have to seek for the higher heights in himself to understand life better, and you do not understand life better by going and spending your time or seeking comfort and pleasure in children.
Let's take a call. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
Good evening.
Good evening, man.
Afi?
Yes.
That's Tyrampa with you.
Hey, how are you doing there?
I mean, I have my stress, but I'm holding on.
Wonderful.
And you know, when I hear children, it always troubles me.
Of course.
Afi, you see, the mothers of Dominica, we have a lot to blame. When anybody comes to be our friend, we should find out who the person is. Let me just give you an instance of what happened to me. A friend of mine, she told me this, I love you. I said, yes, I know. And she had 2 children working in a place where they leave work at 12 o'clock in the night. But whenever I get to know people that I am new with, I do a little investigation. And she said to me, Norma, could you grant me a favor? I said, what favor is that? Could you allow your husband to get up in the night, to wake up my husband to drop her children at the 4 road to go to get a bus? I said, woman, you crazy? You come to mash up my home. You come to take what I have. How could a mother expect me to wake up my husband in the night to bring two children, one 17 years, one 18 years, at a bus stop? I feel how you feel about that.
No, you're right. This is placing everybody at risk in that situation. Everybody.
But you have to ask God for wisdom when dealing with people. I watch around young girls, 15 years, 16 years. They say they want a child. I say, I don't think I have the courage. You know what will be the second respond to me? No matter who you live in your house for. I feel you're really, really in this country. When I see some mothers how they come dressed to clinic, I say, but come on the side. You're not dressed as a person that have children. You're not showing them an example. That is for your bedroom. You come to see a doctor. I feel many Dominicans doing a lot of nonsense, but trust me, mothers are greedy. Everything they see their neighbor have, they want. And you know a thing that's killing us? The telephone. People go to a party. You don't discuss children, the latest news, what is wrong, who you have dead, who you have, you know, the things how we go about life. Everybody's on their telephone talking and nobody enjoying the party, you know what I feel? That I really stay to myself at home. And when I come I listen to this program because I love children. But right now, if you look, my phone is on EWTN because I need food for thought. And the work that I do, after you don't know, children that cry in my arms and mothers. And I am only going to leave it to God. But I want people to know, when God is not in a nation, the people perish. We have to bring back God, and we have to bring back a lot of morals in the church. All of us were young. All of us would go and pick mangoes. I would go and pick mango, and I do catch up myself. Class start and teacher outside waiting for us. Mango we were picking, and nothing was wrong. So what is the problem now? You see that telephone, that computer, and parents not watching. When I see things that 2.5 years children, 3 years do, I marvel. I feel, I don't know how to text. Would you tell me I am maybe not telling the truth? I am telling
No,
you.
I understand.
So I think as families, we need to sit back, think. Don't only think about the worldly things. Since I was 15 years, I was working and going to school because my mother had 10 of us. And that's a lot of people to send to school. 4 children in Roseau. I feel one choose to go to school for how long? Everything children see, I want it now. Children crying for it. Crying, and parents just have to look it. I feel I am very, very sad. But the Bible is fulfilling. But we still have to fight. And we still have to see who we can at least help to see God's face. Because I believe there's a heaven and a hell. And trust me, I am not the best, but I want to go to heaven. I think everybody should try that. Bye-bye, Mr. Afi. Thanks for listening.
Okay, my dear. Thank you so much for calling, as always. Mr. Arampo, somebody who has experienced tremendous pain.
Your child is concerned. It's a thing it's difficult to let go. The memory is always there.
Yeah. Let's take another caller. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
Good evening, Afi. Good evening, Pat, and then good evening, Marilyn.
Good evening.
Afi, you asked Pat a very pertinent question there, whether there is hope.
Yes, is there?
Afi, there is always hope. There has never been an evil regime or evil perpetrated by human beings that
didn't come
not
to an end.
come to an end. At some time or the other, it might be slow, Happy. We might become impatient. It might be slow, but somehow already they meet their Waterloo. And as they say, power is transitory. Power in man never lasts forever. God is in control, so there is an end to everything. It's just that we, as I said, we are not patient. to wait until to wait to see the outcome of the evil deeds that are perpetrated by men on other men. And Pat made a point about the 144,000, and I was very, very interested in that subject, and I read, I researched, I prayed, and Pat, believe you me, it has nothing to do with the amount of people that saved or the amount of people that go into heaven. Not at all, Pat. And then, as a matter of fact, Christ said, each of the disciples, he had 12 disciples, and each of them will be ruling over a tribe of Israel when he comes back to rule on this earth. And there is a lot of misconception and false doctrines going around telling everybody going to heaven and things like that. So the 144,000 have to do with each one of the 12 tribes who will be appointed to take care of the affairs of this world when Christ comes back.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, caller. We have another caller. Caller, go right ahead, please.
Yes. I just want to touch on something. Actually, a little earlier when you talked about that Columbus era and a whole new dimension, spirituality, and Pat extended on the idea of revelation.
Yeah.
I really want us to realize that hearing is our problem, right there. You see, we have been introduced to a God of waiting. It's a fallacy. It's a fallacy. And we really need to return to that God of activeness in the old. That is really where we have to make that movement back. Because you see these kids that you talk about and all their beautiful intelligence and everything, you know what they're waiting on, Afi? To see us as active elders. That is what has been lost. We are no longer active elders. And so let us not fall into that New Testament doctrine of acceptance. It is bullshit.
Yeah.
We really have to return to that old doctrine of being empowered in the godness and doing the inspiration. That is what is going to change these youth, not talk.
Okay, brother.
Peace and blessing.
But it's interesting. They see us active, but they see us active in the wrong things. I didn't finish the list of questions, but I mean, these kids know everything. They know who's having affairs with whom, which minister is with which other minister's wife or girlfriend. They know everything. They see us. It would be a fallacy to think that the adult population is not active, but the adult population that is in the public leadership of the country is active in some horrible ways. And nowadays, they don't even try to hide it. When a minister can tell you that he's built 3 homes for himself, big homes, and renting them, and he's driving $150,000 vehicles, $200,000 vehicles, new vehicles every year or every other year, he's active. He's extremely active. When he can pick and choose which young secretary in his ministry is going to travel with him this time around, he's active. But that's what he's active doing. And guess what? The messenger sees, the secretary knows, the driver knows, because the driver has to bring the girl to where, and bring the ticket and the passport and the this and the that. So they're active. Our population is active, but they're just not active doing righteous things. They're not active volunteering. They're not active, if you will, standing up for what's right in the society. They're not active supporting musicians and artists and sports people and who want to do things but who don't have the resources to do them. They're active purchasing every unoccupied property in within the Rosa area at $300 plus per square foot of property. And that's happening. They're active in the Panama Papers. Their names have appeared in the Panama Papers.
Yes.
They're active in preventing justice from happening for Goni Manuel by going to judicial review.
So maybe it's we now who take offense at this one not active enough. Like I think Zed was initiating there,
Yes.
that maybe we are the ones who need to come out and be more active.
Yes.
Challenge them face to face.
Yeah. And because the same way the young people see those things going on and they can tell you, We know. But you know, when a country educates a segment of its population to provide it with leadership, and that same segment agrees to rape the country instead of provide leadership, it's time to remove them. It's time to prune that segment off, prune that branch off. You understand? And it cannot be that you have a situation where your hospital is in the condition it is, your roads are in the condition it is, and yet somebody can seem to find money to keep giving individuals in a by-election, not a general election. People are being handed $4,000, $5,000, $10,000
of their own money.
Of their own money, but they're being handed to them.
They've been bought with it.
Yes.
And cut styled upon with it.
Yes. So there's a lot of activity, but it's the wrong kind of activity, and those who see it and know it's wrong and are still remaining silent, as my partner Henry Shingfeld would say, fireburn them. Fireburn them.
I think we have to be more active. I think, it calls for taking a stand.
Yeah, it calls for that. It calls for that. And I mean, the children, you see, who's going to save children? How are children going to be saved if people don't stand up and save them?
You see, the problem as well with the standing up, and I agree with you entirely. The problem there is that Dominicans, our population, our society, seem to have this view that once you're taking a stand for something, you're supporting a political party. Or you're against a political party.
Yeah,
and we need to separate the two. We need to separate.
The issues.
There are issues in our society that we need to stand up and speak about, and we need to stand up in defense of, and we need to push and ensure that we get the results that we want to see happening.
But I say too, it doesn't matter which political party they align with, if it is the right thing, if the political party represents what is right.
Yes, but a lot of people can't make that differentiation. A lot of people, do you understand what I'm saying? We're so colorblinded, politically colorblinded, that we're hanging everything. This is not a Dominica issue. This is a United Workers' Party issue. This is not a Dominica issue. This is a Q95 issue. This is not a Dominica issue. It's an Afi Martin issue. Do you understand? So it is not about us as a society that are taking a stand, and it shows, because there have been rallies, there have been meetings, there have been so many different things where people are called upon to come and stand up and say, this is what we stand for or stand against. And look at the numbers.
Yep.
Look at the representation, and those are the people that our young people are saying, where are they?
Where are they?
Why are they not? Why are our aunties and uncles and nenens and powers and so on not coming forward and speaking on our behalf?
That's right.
So it doesn't. We need to learn where to put the political support to one side and focus on what is real.
Or to put the political support and action behind an issue, regardless of who is leading the issue. Because I can say so again, because I do think that this is one issue on which I think, for example, the United Workers' Party took the right position.
Definitely.
Early, they took the right position. They said, this will not be allowed to stand. This business of child sexual abuse, regardless, and even if a member of the party was named in the action, they took that stand. That deserves accolade.
Yes.
That deserves,
Definitely.
But no,
However, to move on, the question is, what prevents a person from being able to separate an issue from an organization? That's right. The issue you're raising. Or what lets them be so color-blinded that even if they know it is the right stand that has been taken by a particular issue, but they will do the wrong thing because it's that organization, and vice versa.
Exactly. So therefore, to me it shows hate. People hate one party so much that they will follow the devil against that party because they hate that party. It's not, it isn't love.
Absolutely.
But I think afterward, I'm thinking about what Zed, the point that Zed made too. I think, despite the fact that people will align you to a political party because you take a stand that is congruent with that political party, it doesn't matter. I think we have to take some Lone Ranger stands and some small group stands, and watch it blossom.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We're going to take our last break for the evening, and we're going to allow ourselves to be serenaded by
change and technology, we don't seem to mind that our children are all grown up way before their time. Society doesn't draw a clear distinction between the behavior appropriate for adults and for children. Control the flow of material that is influencing. Because children don't play children games anymore. It's uncensored music, TV, and the streets they're going for. But I pray one day we'll revert to the good old days when children were children and innocence prevailed. Innocence prevailed. Children be children. Let them play for the sake of play. Let them be free from complications of adulthood. Shield them from this brutal world and let them thrive as children should. Our children be children. Let them play. Don't let them go astray.
Power of woman, the power of woman. I asked Pat before about hope. There is hope. There is reason for hope. Let me give you a couple of reasons for hope. You see that case there involving the minister and the two other gentlemen? The mother was offered $500,000 in cash to drop the matter. $500,000 in cash was brought to her by a former minister, and she turned it down.
There is hope.
There's hope.
There's hope.
That's hope.
There is hope.
The young lady who is the victim of this, and she's a student at the convent high school. Over 100 students, young women students at that school, have for the last several weeks been assembled around that young woman in a support group.
There is hope.
There's hope. There is hope. And included in that group, sadly, but with hope, are some other young women who have been abused by men in high places. And I believe there is hope that those young women who have not yet spoken up and confronted their abusers will get strength from that support group, and sooner rather than later will confront those abusers in high places and bring them down. There's hope.
Well, yes, there better be hope. After, I heard Pastor Rodney say on his last program Friday that from captain down to cook, that they're all involved. And we have to leave this program there. We have to leave the program with sending strength and encouragement and courage to these young people. We have to leave this program there with leaving those who have not yet been exposed fearful, knowing that the day is going to come, and sooner than they think, sooner than later, where they're going to be exposed to. This woman I was talking about who said, "You tooth cafe." All of us cannot agree that's so it is. Let's just move on. Yeah, like Zed was saying, we have to be more active. I think we need to keep pushing that matter and giving strength to the other young people who have not come out as yet to come out. Because no matter what, I'm still considering what IP said. Maybe we are this beginning or the end. But I don't think we can stand there and accept the lowness of our high places, like our cabinet, our governance, our churches. I don't think we should stay and accept the lowness that has been brought to those high places. The idea of the low men in high office, I not think we have to take a stand against that. And going back to one point we made a while ago as to about hope. Who would have thought that Gaddafi would have fallen to be hiding in a culvert so quickly, or Saddam Hussein?
There's hope.
Yes, there is hope. I remember staying at my house and looking at the fall of the World Trade Center, and it took me a day or two to get back my appetite because I couldn't believe what I was seeing was happening. Even the Berlin Wall when it came down. So there is hope because, like I said, the universe is alive, and the universe operates on good vibrations, and in the end the good vibration will always conquer the bad vibration. So there is hope. There is hope.
And there are many Cynthias out there. That grandmother.
Yes.
There are hundreds of Cynthias.
Yes. And there are a few more of the Cynthia mothers who will turn down the $500,000.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And we have to give them the strength and the courage and let them know there is hope, and that is just a phase, it's a passing thing, and that will be swept out with the rest of the garbage as well.
And the challenge really is for those adults who want to be part of that hope, to be prepared to stand up and encircle and support and protect the young people as they get ready to stand up and expose their defilers, expose their abusers. We have to be prepared to protect those people, even at whatever cost to ourselves. Because those young people have to be empowered. Their source of power and the energy that they need in order to continue their lives or to repair broken lives has to come from we giving them the support for them to do the right thing. Not for we doing it, quote unquote, for them, but we doing it for ourselves by showing that we have not lost hope.
Yes.
We have not given up. We have not become broken. We have not become part of the defiled. But we are prepared to stand up. And when those names are called, and when they fall, those low men in high places, when they fall, we have got to be prepared to make sure that they don't just fall and stay so, They have to be made to give account.
Yes.
They have to be made to give account for this intergenerational crime that they would have committed. And those people, it's almost like a truth and reconciliation thing. They have to be made to publicly apologize to those young people.
And I believe, Afi, and I know there are some parents out there and men, and I am one of them, that if I am to confront that with a child of mine, that would start a turning point in something.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents have to make up their mind to take that stand. Like you said a while ago, there comes a time in life for when anything goes. I remember a movie I saw once, A Time for Killing.
Yeah, I know that. I know the movie.
Yeah, you saw that movie.
Yes.
There is a time for everything.
Yes.
Everything under the sun.
The book says so.
Yes, there is a time for everything under the sun. And no matter if they pass their laws about inciting violence, have you ever known a time in the history of man where there were not a few men who stood up? There's always that. Some people who will not be afraid or will take matters into their hand and stand and do what needs to be done, whatever it is, whatever needs to be done.
And nothing is more violent than the defiling of a child.
Yes.
Nothing can be more violent or brutal or depraved than the abuse of a child. Take on somebody your size.
Totally agree.
Take on somebody your size.
Totally
Leave
agree.
the children alone.
Yes.
And where are the men in the society who have to stand up? Whether it's 10 men or 10,000 men, Pat, those numbers have to start being counted. Because if you don't stand up for something as seminal as this, something as core as this, what is more important than the person who represents your future? Who actually, when you get old and you're sitting, it is that same young child who's going to be around. That child may be a nurse at that time, maybe a doctor, maybe just a friend who will come and give you that cup of porridge. So in a rare sense, by protecting children, you protect your future.
Yourself, yes.
And if you defile children, you defile your future. And you defile the society by extension.
Yes. And when you defile the society, you defile me too. So we have to, you see, I always believe in life that if you're not willing to stand and defend what is yours, then you deserve to lose it.
Let's take a call, Pat. Good evening, caller. Go right ahead.
Yes, Afri, good evening. Once again, here on your panel. You know, that song you played during the break had forced me to call again.
Which one is this?
Let the children be children.
Of course. Tasha P.
Let them be free from the complication of adulthood. Afri, that was such a powerful song by that messenger.
Yes.
And well put together and sung by the artist. That it won her our first, female monarch.
That's correct.
Right, Afi.
It wasn't that song? It wasn't that year?
No.
Okay, it's not that year.
Yes, Afi. Pat may correct me if I'm wrong.
But he's correcting you.
I know an artist, when an artist pen a song, they write because of their personal conviction, what they feel inside, and because of what's happening around them. And then when that conviction, something happens, I expect to hear their voice. What happened to that messenger? The messenger was a female. The artist is a female. Are they not enraged? According to Pat, why is the silence of the church and other people in society so loud? I expect the messenger and the artist to be one of the first two women to come out in Dominica to come out and condemn what is happening.
Particularly
what has happened to that child.
Particularly the writer, because many times the artist is just singing the song, but the writer is the one who originates the song. And yes, and I think it is more incumbent, or you would expect more, that the writer would be outraged even before the artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, Pat.
Okay.
No, and as Pat said, is it because that people now have become so hypocrite that they hate one party so much that even when the party takes a stand on what is noble, what is good, they refuse to support? Or is it because, on National Day, the messenger could be playing a party song, woy, 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 something happening, or music lovers government band playing woy, 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 something happening, a party song, that they cannot come out and speak about the wrong thing that's happening to the children?
Yeah.
Heaven help us, gentlemen and ladies.
And we help ourselves.
That's right.
I would just say, Afi, Pat, in the spirit of hope,
Yeah.
I'm actually really encouraged by the conversations that you're having with the young people around Dominica. I'm encouraged by the group that has come together to support the young woman. But the voices of our young men and women around Dominica who have every awareness of what's going on. But I would urge them and encourage them to let their voices be heard, not just through the mouthpiece of Afi Martin or the mouthpiece of anybody else, but letting them realize that actually this is you. This is about you. This is about your future. We have to do the right thing. We have a responsibility to them, and we have to demonstrate that. But they too have a right as a citizen of this world, as a citizen of Dominica, but a citizen of the world, of humankind, that they have a right to stand up and say, enough. Enough. And I would really love to see and hear, in whatever way they can bring it out. And young people are very creative. So it doesn't have to be that they're doing a radio show or a rally or whatever, but there are singers, there are artists, there are performers, there are spoken word artists, there are so many different, exactly. So they can find a creative way to express themselves and make their voices be heard. And I would say that's again another message of hope.
On that note, I want to say good night to all the listeners all over the world who've been joining us. Thank you, all of you. Thank you to all the Cynthias of the world, the mothers, grandmothers, and aunties who continue to protect our children. And to you, uncles and fathers and others who are protectors. Let's stand up and be counted. Thank you so much. Pat, thank you so much.
Thank you, Abby. Good
Thank
night.
you for coming. Thank you.
Respect is lost even in schools. Whoa, whoa. These are the days when honesty, honor and integrity seems to be the treasures of a fool. Whoa, whoa. These are the days of deception. These are the days of destruction. If everything says these are the days, then these are the days. Whoa, whoa, these are the days. Whoa, 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 na 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 na. World of hunger, diseases with no cure, unrest and uprisings everywhere. Reality means nothing, image is everything. The world is in the hand of the deceiver. Man is a victim of his own intelligence, and the youth are the same children of disobedience. And just like Babylon back then, seems an unseen force wields the system on a destructive course that no one dares to stop. These are the days of numbers, great signs and wonders. Seems we are back in the biblical days. Whoa, whoa. These are the days of Babylon. These are the days of false religion. These are the days of revelation. Whoa, whoa. These are the days when men has lost his way. These are the days when evil seems to pay. forces of nature like never before, showing death and destruction everywhere. And we never stop long enough to consider, are we in sync with creation or creator? But it's all been said before, it's all been done before, we're no wiser than before, and it's also clear, nobody really cares. These are the days of godless men, children ruling over them. Nothing can change man and his ways. Whoa, whoa. These are the days of floods of rain, earthquakes and hurricanes. Nothing has changed, but it's not strange. Whoa, whoa. These are the days of terror, the fall of the great world order. Everything says these are the days, and these are the days. Whoa, whoa, these are the days. Oh, whoa, 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 na na na, na 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 na. Boy, these are the days.
Malcolm X, black. Marcus Garvey, black. Barack Obama, black. Bill Clinton, black. How you think about that? How a leap of great, some of the greatest people in African history document that. So free up black people, live up black people. I in a jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. So free up black people, free up black people. In a jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. Yeah, my point is, the meek shall never the earth, and me no matter what the fight is. And it was with them long before the 80s or the 90s, before the colonel find the herbs and spices. Black people, don't get caught in them system. Just overcome and don't become a victim. Cause them system set, for them get the future, all of the history we get. So free up black people, live up black people. Are you not jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. So free up black people, free up black people. In a jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. Don't forget, you see him boy black. Greatest of the greats, check the record on the track. Asaf, Shelley and Fraser, Merlin, Natty, Ben Johnson and Quarry, me fi tell you about that. Bob Marley, Muhammad Ali and Denzel Washington. Too many to mention. Whitney Houston, Michael Jordan from the African lineage, River Jordan. Black people, live up black people. Are you not jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. So free up black people, free up black people. In a jailhouse, someone feel like people. Mental shackles and chain in a brain, them trap people. Free up black people, live up black people. So free up black people, free up black people.
Here I come, here I come, here I come again. And there you go, with your silly games, girl. You know you're hot then cold, you're in then out. You want me then you wanna be friends, then you want go not then so. So you love rum so, me no want go through it again. Hey, you know you're hot then cold, in then out. You want me then you wanna be friends, then you want go not then so. So you love rum so, me no want go through it again. No, this is not a joke thing. Why you laughing? When you really are deal with, hey, you stop the walking.
then you want go north then south. So your love run so. Me know